What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another installment of Warframe of the Day. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of my old favorite frames, Mirage. I used to use her, didn't really play with her that much, I guess. Knew she was broken at the time because she was capable of so much DPS with certain weapons, especially the Synoid Simulor, which if you haven't seen that, it's pretty much a black hole gun. It used to be really broken. I believe DE nerfed the Synoid Simulor or nerfed Mirage a little bit. Not really sure, but I decided to pick her back up and take another look at her, this time building her for a melee setup. Went and set up a build I've been playing with. I don't know if it's the best build, but I like it so far. Take a look at it. Corrosive Projection. This is, of course, our aura mod. It reduces armor. We got Vigor, Shield Capacity, and Shield Health. Narrow-Minded, Ability Duration, Ability Range. Hall of Malevolence. This will change her one augment just a little bit to make it do more damage in theory. Hall of Mirrors augment. The damage of your doppelgangers is increased by 5% every time you kill an enemy. This stacks up all the way to, I believe, 50%. Then we have Continuity, 30% ability duration. Rage, of course y'all know how that works. Streamline, 30% ability efficiency. Intensify, 30% ability strength. And Blind Rage, ability strength minus efficiency. So if you take a look on the top left corner, you can see she doesn't have much armor. She's got a little bit of energy. You can tell we're not running flow, but this is not a energy hungry build. Then we have our health, which is 336, our shield 336, and sprint speed is pretty high for her. She's agile. One of the things I noticed when I was playing with Mirage, no matter even if you put on redirection and vitality, she doesn't have a lot of health or shield. It gets up to a decent amount, but not enough for me to worry about it. And that was one of the reasons I decided to give this build a little help. How we did that is once you progress far enough through the campaign, this is a spoiler alert, by the way. If y'all haven't played to this point, do not watch, but you have been warned. So once you play to a certain point in the campaign, you unlock your operator and you unlock skill trees. Each skill tree does certain things. The one we're going to be looking at today is Naramon. Naramon, my bad. Naramon, unleash 5 bursts of psychic energy over 10 seconds that inflict confusion on enemies within a 20-meter, 20-degree cone. So this is not why we use Naramon, albeit this is good. This is not our main focus. The best thing about Naramon is right up here. Shadow Step. Mind Spike grants 5 seconds of invisibility when inflicting critical damage with a melee weapon for the duration of the mission. The way that these focus trees work is once you have filled your focus meter, which I will show y'all in a bit, it will trigger, or more so you trigger it once it's the entire meter is filled. You will hold R1 to access your abilities and then L1, and that will activate the focus. Now we're going to take a look at our abilities. Hall of Mirrors. Mirage creates an entourage of doppelgangers to confuse and distract the enemy. We get up to 4 doppelgangers. We have a duration of 52 seconds, and the damage percentage for each doppelganger is 42%. Then we have Sleight of Hand. We don't really focus on her too, which is her Sleight of Hand. It is good. I've a build for it that I used to use when I first started playing her. It's good for defense and crowd control, but we're not really focused on it. Then we move on to Eclipse, which is her 3. Standing in the light, Mirage deals heavy damage, while the shadows make Mirage difficult to track and even harder to hurt. The duration is 42 seconds. The damage increases 422%, and if we are shadowed, quote unquote, the damage reduction is 95%. Finally, her 4, again, we don't really focus on this, we don't really use it. It is very good, but not my focus for this build. Prism fires an energy prism that shoots lasers in all directions. Activate again to detonate the prism, blinding nearby foes. Number of lasers, etc., etc. Like I said, we're not focused on that. We want to use her 1 and her 3. So our melee weapon for today is the Guandao. I want to say Guando. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but that's what I call it. The build for this is my standard build most of the time, but this one has a bit of range. I can kind of show you all that. Got our stance mod, pressure point, organ shatter, berserk, body count, blood rush, life strike, fury, and primed reach. And that is what we will be running. We're going to go ahead and go to my testing grounds. Earlier I was recording or not recording, and I was doing a bit of leveling for a different melee weapon, and I was attacked by the what do they call it? The parent sequence. Yeah, it was not a good time. Not a good time. Mostly because I was leveling things and testing out new builds, so I didn't even know if it was good enough to be in operation. So, standard deal. We're going to go ahead and start that up. So, because we're only using her 1 and her 3... Oh, a Niatin star. Nice. I have like 100 and something of those. I don't even need them anymore. Because we're only using her 1 and her 3, she's not very energy hungry. She is pretty quick, so we can kind of get away from these enemies real quick. Cast her 1, cast her 3, pull out our melee weapon, and just smack everything. As you can see, range helps a lot. We are able to cover more area. Spin attacks are even better. Spin attacks have increased range. But you kind of just chew through enemies with this setup. And as you can see in the top right there, we have a 50%. That is the damage counter for our entourage of doppelgangers. And then we have the 95% and 422%. That will change periodically whether I'm standing in the light or standing in the dark. If I'm standing in the dark, I'm 95% harder to hit. If I'm standing in the light, that's going to give our huge damage increase. So as you can see, we're still at full ability energy. Cast those. Still doesn't drop us too low. And by the time you've wiped out enough enemies, you can get your energy back. One of the things to note is that it is really difficult to deal with Corpus because of nullifiers. I choose not to show any builds off with Corpus just because nullifiers will kind of screw up any frame and makes it a little bit harder to show off the strengths. As you saw there, we just hit 14,850. I think that was 12,000 right there. So this melee weapon's pretty nice, pretty saucy. Can hit some pretty nice combos or criticals. And if you're wondering what that 14-second counter, now 18-second counter, that is just an arcane. Those are late game additives, I guess I could say. Really, I wouldn't use arcane. I believe it's Arcane Guardian that I have on. Arcanes are just random additives for different abilities. The one that I have on adds armor whenever you are taking damage, and it's alright. It's not really good for Mirage, but it would be good for someone like Atlas, maybe even somebody like Equinox, if you're using Nightform Equinox. But that is about what there is with this frame. I know it may seem kind of boring, but it depends on where you take it, what you're doing. I like this frame, and especially this setup, just because I can smack people from really far away. It's got good crowd control. A lot of enemies swarm you. You can just spam circle. Nothing can touch you. Of course, this build would even be better on something like Orthos Prime, or with Orthos Prime. That's a melee weapon with ungodly amounts of range. A lot of people liked that. Before, I believe they nerfed it, the Telos Voltus. Those are another melee weapon that has just a ridiculous spinning attack with good range and good damage. But as you can see, we can't really be damaged unless something's shooting us from afar. Even then, we can skedaddle over to it before it can hurt us enough to down us. Of course, we can redo our ability there. And now you may think that the 3 there doesn't make a difference, or I guess or 2, whichever one you want to call it. Doesn't make a difference. Well, while I was leveling the Amphis, not a fan so far, but while I was leveling the Amphis, it made a lot of difference. It made it able to kill these level 30 Grineer without problem. Actually, it was not too bad. I think it's only like level 19 right now, and I was leveling it from level 12 or so, and it was chewing through these guys without much effort. But that is my build for her. Nothing too fancy. There's a lot of ways you can build her. Like I said, I mostly focus on melee Warframe setup. But, well, we're gonna smack that. But you can build her a myriad of different ways. The way I used to have her set up is I focused on her 2 and 4. For crowd control, you could use a augment to change her 4 into kind of like a crowd control freezing effect. It would turn items on the ground into little frost trip mines, and once they were detonated, they would like freeze enemies in place or slow them down. It's very decent, but you have to kill a lot of enemies and get a lot of items to drop before it's worth anything. And then her 4, of course, shoots lasers everywhere and does really high damage. Definitely worth taking a look at if you are interested in Mirage. There is a quest to get her, good storyline, not just farming. But that about concludes my setup for Mirage. If y'all want to see more, please let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I can do better, tell me what I can do worse. And thank y'all for tuning in. See y'all next time.